How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sundays, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern, Saturday mornings with Jim Valley, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern, Sundays with Andrew Zarian. And it is Thursday here on the show, and you know what that means? Well, we got a lot to talk about, that's for sure. No co-host today. I'm flying solo, but in the final segment of the show, we'll be joined by our old friend, Vinnie Pacifico. He's going to be on the show today. Actually got to hang out with him a couple of weeks ago at the SOS show here in the Seattle area. So we'll talk about a lot of things going on with him. And prior to that, we have all of the news, including in the second major segment of the show, we'll be talking about the Dynamite show from last night. There is a Collision show that is taking place tonight. So we'll tell you about the lineup for that show. And, of course, there's a lot going on. We got Collision. We got Impact. We got Under Siege. We got SmackDown. We got Saturday night's main event. We got Battleground. We got Double or Nothing. We got Raw. That's all between now and Monday. And there's also an Arena Mexico show, as always. There's Best of the Super Juniors. A lot to watch, everybody. So we'll get into some of that here today. And also, got an update on Zoe Stark. We got big news on WrestleMania. We got some notes on the TNA ratings, and I want to make a comment about the Raw ratings as well. And as noted, New Japan Best of the Super Juniors and plenty more. If you want to text us today and join the show, 425-780-7566. That is 425-780-7566. I'm F4W Online at gmail.com. F4W Online, Threads, Instagram, and Cameo. At Bryan Alvarez, X and Blue Sky. And hey, Cameos are $10. $10 for a personalized message. So head up to Cameo and grab one today. Back in a moment with more. Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Let's get going. We've got a lot to talk about. Zoe Stark has said thank you to fans for their love and support. She said it means more to her than they'll ever know. What hurts more than my knee, she says, is knowing I won't be able to perform for all of you for a while. I love what I do, and I'm blessed to do this. As the saying goes, the comeback is greater than the setback. Love you guys. So there's no official word on her knee, but the fact that she says she will not be performing for a while, well, obviously something went badly wrong. I don't know if that means torn ACL. I don't know if that means she tore everything, but it does appear she's going to be out of action for quite a while. So all the best to her, and maybe we'll get an update, maybe we won't. It's the thing with wrestling nowadays. You know, sometimes they'll tell us what's going on, and sometimes they don't. So all the best to her. Now, some big news, and we actually don't know the extent of this yet, but we will very soon. WWE, as reported by Brandon Thurston, obtained a statement from the Greater New Orleans Sport Foundation that claims the city will be hosting WrestleMania not next year, but in a, quote, later unspecified year. So this is a really big story because, you know, they announced WrestleMania in New Orleans. And not only did they announce a WrestleMania in New Orleans, but, you know, a lot of the independent groups, I mean, you know, tickets or hotels were purchased and buildings were rented. And, you know, this is more than just WWE, you know, canceling WrestleMania in New Orleans. I mean, this is going to have a huge effect on all of the other promotions that had already made plans to run New Orleans over WrestleMania weekend. So, obviously, the deal here is they're getting a better deal somewhere else. And there are 3 places that are being rumored as of today. And, well, of course, they can just cancel their plans. But, I mean, I'm talking like, you know, it depends on what the deal they made with particular buildings. I mean, can they get the entire deposit back? Can they not? It's one thing with hotels, but it might be something different with renting out buildings and everything that goes into putting together a series of shows over WrestleMania weekend. So anyway, the 3 rumored locations for WrestleMania next year are now London, Mexico, and Saudi Arabia. So I see a lot of people in the chat are presuming it's going to be Saudi Arabia. The thing with Saudi Arabia is getting the Royal Rumble. And I suppose they could also change the Royal Rumble, you know, do the Royal Rumble somewhere else and then do WrestleMania in Saudi. But, I mean, if you ask me, my gut tells me that Saudi is the least likely of the 3 possibilities. I think very good chance London. It's been talked about for a long time. Obviously, you know, as soon as AEW did a giant crowd in Wembley, you knew that WWE was going to want to go in and you know, break that record. And the other option, which I think, especially because the whole situation with the purchase of AAA, and it's more than just wanting a presence in Mexico. They obviously want a big presence in Mexico, but also they want to be number 1 in Mexico. They want to beat CMLL. I mean, Aztec Stadium for WrestleMania, I don't think is out of the question. So I presume we're going to find out fairly soon where WrestleMania is going to be next year, but it is not going to be in New Orleans. And, you know, whether it's in London or whether it's in Mexico, I mean, there's a reason for this, and that is either we're going after AEW or we're going after CMLL. So we'll find out who's top of the list for this coming year. So that's the update on that. If you made plans for New Orleans, well, I mean, you can still go to New Orleans. It's fun. but you ain't going to see WrestleMania there. All right, we've also got to talk some ratings notes. I know people don't like to talk about ratings, but I'll make it quick. First off, NXT, 697,000 viewers and a .13. So viewership was up, and 18 to 49 was down. So just basically more old people were watching the show. Nothing really to talk about there. What is notable here is Raw. So here's the thing, and this applies to WWE and AEW. It applies to Raw, and it applies to Max. We don't have any idea how these shows are doing, okay? Max doesn't give any information at all. And, allegedly, Tony Khan and AEW, they can't even get any information about how many people are watching on Max, other than it's doing well, whatever that means. And, with Raw on Netflix announces numbers, and then everybody tries to do math to find out, well, how many people were actually watching. So, according to Netflix, the April 12th Raw did 5.1 million viewing hours and 2.7 million global viewers. So this would mean Raw did 1.156 million viewers over 7 days. And like the same day viewership of Raw would allegedly be 983,000 viewers. Okay? 983,000 viewers. Now, I talked about this a little bit yesterday. I don't buy this at all. I don't think there's any way that only 980,000 people are watching Raw on Monday nights. I don't know, like with Nielsen, the way they get the viewership is, well, there's this number of households. In each household, there's X number of viewers. I don't know if maybe Netflix just says if it's on in the house, it's one viewer. I mean, people are going to go nuts in the chat, but this is reality, everybody, okay? We know that a percentage of the AEW viewership is watching on Max. I know people like to say there's nobody watching whatever, but there are, okay? I've always estimated between 150 and 250,000 people are watching on Max. I don't think it's 500,000 people watching on Max. I don't think it's 1 million people. I think on a good week, it's probably near 250. On a bad week, it's maybe closer to 150. But we're talking like between 150 and 250,000 people. And people can deny it all they want, but like every time we talk about it on the chat, on the YouTube chat, you can ask anybody. Lots of people are watching on Max. I quit watching. I only watch on Max, all the shows. I don't think it's crazy that 250,000 people are watching AEW on Max. But I find it hard to believe that if you add in TBS and TNT, the viewership of Dynamite and Collision, especially Dynamite, and you add in the Max viewership, what this would be saying is that Raw and Dynamite are basically neck and neck. And I can't buy that just from looking at what are these shows drawing to the buildings? How many people are showing up for the shows? What are they drawing for television? What are they drawing when they go on the road? How are they doing in terms of big shows? How are they doing in terms, like every aspect of business? I cannot believe that Raw on Monday night and Dynamite on Wednesday are essentially doing the same viewership. Maybe that's the case, but I think something is really weird with these Netflix numbers. I can't buy that Raw on Monday 2 weeks ago did 983,000 viewers. It doesn't make any sense, but that's allegedly the number. So, it was easy in the old days when everybody, like whatever you think about Nielsen ratings, whether you think they're accurate or not, at least like they were all Nielsen ratings. So whether they were accurate or not, they were all, you could compare them all. Now when we've got Netflix has this wacky number and whatever, Max has who knows. I mean, we don't know. Back in a moment, Observer Live. You know, Tony Khan's doing a media call right now. You know what he just said? He said Max is still building pay-per-view capability. You guys remember I said that like 6-8 months ago, and we had these fellas, one in particular, who said, you're wrong. They could do pay-per-view if they wanted. They should hire me. I could have it set up. And he actually said that. If they hired me, I'd have it set up like immediately. Well, they're still building it. So, whatever. All right, we got to talk about this this Dynamite show. It was a very good go-home show for the show this weekend. And we still have Collision coming up tonight. So we had a Hangman Will Ospreay face-to-face, which I thought was excellent. Two baby faces. They both really want the title for their own reasons. They both, there was no physicality, nothing. They just both stated their case. And to be honest, I mean, I don't think they're going to do a turn or anything like that, but of the two, you know, Ospreay was the one that kind of had the edge there at the end, the heel edge. And he said that he was going to take out Hangman. What are you going to do about it? Wrap a chair around my skull, beat me so bad I have to retire like Chris Daniels? Hangman was very upset about that. And they ended up drinking together. And it was excellent. Like, if you want to see a great go-home segment for a match, this is it. And when it was over, I mean, Will Ospreay is asked for the main event slot at the pay-per-view. It definitely feels like the most important match on the show. because it does seem like the winner of this match is going to All In and winning that title from Jon Moxley. Seems like a very, very, very important match. But man, I'm not sure about following that Anarchy in an Arena. I just don't know if I'd do that, but that's what he wanted. Then we had Moxley and the Young Bucks versus Joe, Swerve, and Hobbs. Party match. Excellent match. Great heat. The finish was Joe choking out Nick. Swerve pinned Matt clean with a cradle, which was revenge for, I think, about a week ago when Matt pinned him with a small package. And then the Death Riders came out, and we had Shibata, Marina, Willow, Kenny Omega, everybody running wild. And it was kind of amazing because, like, they did a challenge afterwards with Joe saying, we're going to beat you guys up tonight. Why wait for Sunday? But I will say, you know, at this point in the show, we still didn't know who was in the Anarchy in the Arena match. And honestly, right now, we still don't really know. They've announced a match, and it was Samoa Joe, Shibata, Swerve, Hobbs, Omega, and Willow against Moxley, Claudio, Wheeler, Young Bucks, and Marina. So 6-on-6. But they announced this before they did the main event segment, which saw the return of Gabe Kidd to uneven the odds in favor of the heels. And so, like, officially at this point, it's 6-on-6. I think it's going to be 7-on-7, and Gabe Kidd will be added, and probably the return of Eddie Kingston on the babyface side. But again, we don't know. We shall, I guess, find out on Sunday. Or maybe tomorrow, but probably Sunday. We had the Hurt Syndicate segment and the MVP, MJF contract signing. And this was kind of one of those things. You know, we had a guy call, say, you know, what name some storylines that were like really, really great, but the payoff was kind of whatever. And granted, this wasn't the full payoff because I'm sure there's more to come. But last week, MJF was accepted into the Hurt Syndicate. But they said next week, you must sign the contract. And so I think myself and everybody on the planet figured, okay, well, something's going down next week. Ain't going to be good for MJF. But instead, what they did is MJF signed the contract. The other guys signed the contract. And then Dustin Rhodes and Sammy just came out and cut a promo for the tag match. There was no angle. There was no surprise. Nothing. They just... I don't even know why we needed to extend it another week after they accepted him last week. So it felt like, well, maybe there was going to be something that happened, but so many people were figuring it out that they just shifted, and they'll do the turn later. But man, it was weird. I mean, this was a weird one. So then we had Ricochet and Anthony Bowens, and, you know, Bowens came out, kind of had the boo-boo face, got beat when Billy Gunn did something stupid for reasons unknown, and Ricochet jabbed him with the scissors, pinned him, and then Bowens was out of there. And they did an angle with Mark Briscoe and Ricochet, and I mean, you know, they do wins and losses and everything, and, you know, they don't do a lot of screw job finishes, but man, they this felt like when you used to watch WWE and, you know, a guy would get a push for 3 weeks and then, you know, Vince would give up on him. That's what this felt like here. So we'll see what the future is for Anthony Bowens. We had Renee interviewing Mercedes and Jamie. I thought it was pretty good. Not nearly as good as the segment with Will Ospreay and Hangman, but it was fine. And ended up with a brawl, unlike the opening segment. And Jamie laid her out with a haterade. So the way pretty much everybody books, I think it's pretty clear we're getting Mercedes and Tony at All In. And the main event, it's going to be very interesting to look at the quarters here. Because, yes, I realize that Joe said, you know, this Anarchy in the Arena is going to start tonight, but he said that like an hour and a half earlier. And even though I saw it, an hour and a half later, there'd been no mention of it. And I watched Mina Shirakawa and Julia Hart, and I thought, wow, this is the main event? This is it? I would not have done this for a main event. So, it was fine. Mina Shirakawa was awesome. Julia Hart could very much do with a tour of Japan, do a bunch of indie dates. She is one of many in AEW that, they're basically where they were 5 years ago. And it's just not enough reps. You can't improve doing a show a month or less, especially if you've been injured. So it was just a huge gulf in the ability of these two women. Mina was incredible, and she won, obviously. And then Julia went after her afterwards. Sky Blue hit the ring. Toni Storm hit the ring, had a big brawl. And then, I thought that was good. They did the face-to-face with Will Ospreay and Hangman. They didn't need any physicality. And I don't think this one needed any either. But Mina attacked Toni, put her in the figure 4 around the post. Toni sold it big. And this one, to me, felt like, I don't think we needed this one. I think it was just fine to do the match, do the angle. Plus, there's going to be a bunch of, as we found out afterwards, physicality afterwards with the Anarchy in the Arena crew. So the Bucks go to leave. Matt, in a cocky manner, says, this Joe said he was going to attack us before we left, but we're leaving and he didn't attack us. So he is a pathological liar. And he winks and goes to leave. And, of course, here comes Joe. And we have the wild brawl. And, the baby faces are doing well, but then Gabe Kidd shows up. And they did the record scratch with the music they had playing. And the heels took over. Omega and Swerve got put through tables by the Bucks. And the heels stood tall. So we'll see what they do on Sunday. The Death Riders lost the Trios titles. That was the first crack in the armor. But I think that maybe the best course of action is for Moxley to get the pin in Anarchy in the Arena, because he should be very strong going into the championship match against the Swerve Hangman, or the Hangman and Ospreay winner at the pay-per-view. So I think that he should get the win in that match, and then whoever ends up winning, that's your big match coming up at All In. So that was Dynamite. I thought it was a very good go-home show. And then tonight, we have got the Collision show. And I was told in terms of, wrestling, good show, but it doesn't look like they did a whole bunch of angles. The big, heavy angle show for the pay-per-view was Dynamite. So we've got Commander and Speedball versus Rush and Dralistico. Mercedes Moné defends the TBS title against Reina Isis. I have no idea why this is a championship match. They had the video package. That's all great and good. But this is another one of those. They've done this before, too. It's like Mercedes has a big match coming up at the pay-per-view. Why is she in a random title match on the Collision before the pay-per-view? I think it's ridiculous, but that's what they did. FTR and Daniel Garcia and Nigel McGuinness will all do the contract signing. Kyle Fletcher versus Jay Lethal. The Paragon will face the Grizzled Young Vets. They've built that up for several weeks. Josh Alexander faces A.R. Fox, the much-maligned A.R. Fox. Mystico, Templario, and Mascara Dorada versus Volador Jr., Magnus, and Ruhido, which sounds awesome. And Takeshita and Roppongi Vice versus Bandito and the Outrunners. And was essentially told good wrestling, You could probably figure out the finishes to nearly all the matches, even without... and I don't know the finishes, guys. I have no spoilers for you. But that's Collision tonight. And also tonight is Impact with Joe Hendry and Elijah versus Moose and Brian Myers. AJ Francis and Casey Navarro versus Santana and Sami Callihan. Mr. Stone and Santino will have an in-ring debate. Oh, my God. And Mustafa Ali versus Ace Austin. Back in a moment with our old friend, Vinnie Pacifico, Wrestling Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Vinnie Pacifico is joining us here today. We've got a lot to talk about. Vinnie, what's going on?
Bryan, how are you? Thank you for having me.
That's right. How you feeling after, well, I guess it's probably been a few weekends, but saw you a couple of weekends ago, SOS.
We partied in Seattle, didn't we?
Well, I don't know about partying, but we hung out a little bit. How was the show? What'd you think?
I loved it. Always loved wrestling out west on the West Coast, especially the Pacific Northwest, because honestly, some of the best talent, best locker rooms that I've ever been in. So I always enjoy going out there.
It is such a change from back in the day. All of these great promotions and shows and locker rooms. I mean, how often do you get out to SOS?
So it used to be a lot more often. I would get a lot of loops out there, but this year it hasn't been as much as I'd like, because I just have a lot going on with movies, TV, stuff like that. So I'm kind of like juggling a lot of different things at once. But I try to get out to the West Coast whenever I can, really, because I love it out there. I really actually enjoyed my time this week. Last week, because the crowds were just erupting, singing my entrance song. That's something that, the feeling, you can't beat that feeling.
Yeah, this is a hot crowd.
Phenomenal.
Now, I was surprised. This is actually the first time we ever met in person at that show. And I don't know, I never thought about it, but I was surprised to learn. You're only 25?
Yeah.
God. You're like a child. You were born in the year 2000?
No, 26. I just turned 26.
Oh, you're about to turn 26. Okay, so you were born in...
April 13th.
Okay, so you were born in the 90s.
Yeah.
All right, that's not so bad. It was a very tail end, but... Well, I mean, you're very young, and but you're already kind of moving into looking at movies and television slots. I mean, are you looking at like, man, how long can I do this at 26, or what are you thinking?
So for me, it's just, I believe, make the most of every opportunity given, right? And I love wrestling. I will never stop wrestling until my body tells me stop. But I think, why not venture out into other things and become more valuable in wrestling, right? I think so many wrestlers that you name them, went to Hollywood, went to acting, and they became bigger stars. So I feel as if, why not do the same? Why not try and grow in other ways? And so I have been very lucky. I've gotten to do a few movies already, and a TV series that's coming up very soon. And it's been really rewarding, getting to learn different things, be in different places, meet different people, and just become more well-rounded. And I believe it will help me in the long run in pro wrestling.
Around your age, I also was kind of interested in doing some acting. And what I did was, like, around here, we got the Seattle Film Institute, and there's a lot of stuff that films around here. And I just started going to all of these different auditions, and I got some little things here and there, some commercials and some student films, and then you kind of put a resume together, and then you go to auditions. Is that essentially what you did?
Pretty much, no. Someone, friend of my family, kind of had a spot open for the first time on a movie called Frequency of Miracles, and he booked me for it. I did it. I made tons of connections at that filming, and it turned into another film. Actually, I just filmed last Wednesday. I can't get into much detail about it, but it's going to be a really, really awesome movie. The cast is insane. And, yeah, so it just – a lot of things steamroll. When you make one thing happen, more and more things happen. And when you make yourself available for these things to happen, it really can take off. So, yeah, I'm kind of going with the flow, wrestling every single week and then taking whatever comes, but – I feel as if I'm enjoying getting more and more opportunities and being more and more busy, because why not?
Now, how does it work in terms of, let's say you get some role and you're gonna do something for a film, and how it normally works is they film everything, and then once everything is wrapped, sometimes they'll need you again for, okay, well, we need to redo this thing here, or we need to. You got to voice over something here or whatever. Has this ever gotten in the way of a wrestling booking?
No. So luckily they've been very lenient, or to be honest, every time that I've been needed for something, it's always a weekday, I believe, or a weekend that I'm not even wrestling. So it's been pretty good. I haven't actually had to pull off any shows before of it. So I filmed this upcoming wrestling TV series called Mr. Reset, and I've had to go back and film a few things over and over again. But they're very lenient. They know wrestling's on weekends, so they kind of booked everything during the week, which is awesome, and I love it to do that for us.
What have you learned from your time doing acting and television and film and such that you have brought to wrestling? Wow,
it's a great question. Pretty much ways to deal with pressure, because being behind a camera is just, I've done it for so many years wrestling, and I feel as if it's very similar in some ways. Wrestling is kind of no retries though. You have one take. So, but I would tell you the way I deal with pressure and the way that the pressure is applied is different, but I guess it's good practice to be mentally under pressure so that I just am able to adapt to these things. You know what I'm saying? Or able to be in these situations so that I can learn and be malleable for any type of situation I'm going to be in.
So the flip side,
it's a mental thing.
The flip side is, what have you taken from wrestling that you have applied to your burgeoning film career?
A lot. So I'm very good at improv. So from wrestling, of course, all these years of promos or on the cuff, in-ring promos or backstage interviews, and I've used that, and it got me pretty good success so far. So I would say wrestling has given me such a tremendous skill at being able to improv and being able to work under pressure and be able to just take a step back and perform my best. And, it's amazing how wrestling has taught me that and gotten me to where I am now.
So obviously when you are a wrestler who then transitions to TV or film, I mean, there's various characters that you can play. And obviously, if your character in a movie or film is a big, bombastic, pro wrestling style character, well, it's easy to just be a pro wrestler. But if your role is to be more of a normal person, not a big, bombastic character, it's actually very different from wrestling, because in wrestling you want to be big, and you don't necessarily want to be that big when you're playing a role for film. Interesting.
Okay, I mean, I have not played anything that outlandish yet, but I'm looking forward to learning, you know what I mean? I'm in talks with some films in South America. It's found out yesterday, so I don't know what to expect, but I'm obviously going to give my all, of course, with everything that I'm given. But the TV series, Mr. Reset, I'm playing myself, Vinnie Power Punch Pacifico. So it's kind of easy to do that because it's my wrestling character. But a lot of the other films that I've done have been very interview-based for the most part also. So it's kind of just me peeling back, the curtain a little bit on my life and just talking about getting bullied growing up and just being somebody who wants to inspire. And so I would say that, it's film. I haven't really had to act for those couple movies I just did.
Sure.
But it's actually expanded me to mental health. And, so for example, there's a TV show coming out very soon called Men Speaking. It's a round table, 4 people sit in a chair and talk about mental health, self-love, dealing with life's hardest obstacles. And I got cast for it. So one thing leads to the other, leads to the other, leads to the other. So, and they all feed each other, and they're all positive things. So I'm very, very grateful for all these things.
So have you had issues in your life with mental health, or what was your role in this?
Yeah, so growing up, I got bullied in school for liking wrestling, and it really wasn't fun. I was always told, you can't, you don't deserve this, you don't deserve that. I was playing football, and I got terribly bullied just for wearing a John Cena shirt, even with being on the football team as a quarterback, So I had to deal with a lot of bullying growing up and self-esteem issues. And I never really had self-love, right? But I through my marriage and through finding my wife, I've developed self-love through her, which is amazing. She's helped me learn to love myself. And now I try to just, express self-love and try to, inspire people to learn to love themselves and to believe in themselves and take a step forward and take a chance on themselves to believe that they could do anything they want to do. And that's kind of been my thing is I want people to be able to love themselves enough to believe in themselves to do the thing that they're scared to do. But hey, if they want to, for example, there are people who want to wrestle, but they don't believe they could do it. They don't think they could. They don't think they have whatever it takes to do it. I think screw that. Love yourself enough and believe in yourself enough to do it and try the goals that you have in life because you only live once.
So essentially, this is very easy to work into a babyface character.
I guess so. I mean, That's true, yeah. But it's all legit, I've dealt with this my whole life, and I've had to look in the mirror and learn to love who I am, and I'm very grateful that I have an amazing woman by my side who teaches me that and taught me how to love myself. So I try and always inspire other people to take those steps forward, to create self-love, and to work on themselves because you live in your mind. You live in your mind, and no one else knows what you're going through. So I just think, you have to take care of your mental health first.
I don't want to make light of mental health or anything like that, but this very much reminds me of John Cena, where he was a babyface. It was always never give up. And if you go on his Twitter or social media, every day he had some new motivational quote. And
the best.
Yeah. And so then he turned heel, okay? And when he turned heel, I had all of these great ideas. This guy needs to do his motivational quotes, but they should be just quit. or don't get out of bed today. I thought there were like all these things that he could do to like make this character like, play off the anti-John Cena. But instead, he just did the same John Cena. He's just a bad guy now yelling at people. So have you ever played the heel role? I've only seen you doing babyface stuff.
Yes, I've played the heel role plenty of times. I love being a heel because it's literally me, like, as the opposite of me. I'm an annoying version of myself. I'm more dislikable. And, yeah, I love playing heel, but I'm often a face. But when I get to be a heel, I really sit back and I enjoy it, because these fans get really rowdy and they give the middle finger and they curse at you, and it's really cool to have different sides of the coin. When they come out and they love you, and then you go to a different town, you come out and they just get in your face, give you the middle finger, tell you to go screw yourself. It's fun.
So do you make the call? Like, let's say you're going to a town you've never been to before. Do you make the call going in? Or are you and your opponent sort of like, however they react to me, like that's the way we're going here?
Usually I'm brought in as a babyface for the most part. Even in Europe, I was brought in as babyface. But if I get told otherwise, they want me to be a heel. They want to challenge me and say, "Oh, Vinny, I want to see you as heel tonight." I have no problem doing it, and it's literally just the same character, just switched to a different perspective. So it's like, as opposed to me drinking an energy drink, hulking up, how about drink an energy drink and spew it in your opponent's face, in their eyes that they can't see, and then attack them from behind?
Yes,
So it's kind of two sides of the, coin, where it's like, come out energized, come out ready to go. I could still be energized as a bad guy, but I just do it in a really more annoying way.
All right, well, hold that thought. Back in a moment. Observer Live. Back at the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Vinnie Pacifico is joining us here today. I love saying that name. And Vinnie, what do you got coming up? A lot.
So, we have private screenings for my films on this Monday. This Sunday, I wrestle in Connecticut for Pro Wrestling Magic and Kaiju. I will be heading to Florida very shortly in the next couple of weeks to do CCW in Kissimmee and CCW in Port St. Lucie in Game of War, their biggest show of the year. And a lot going on. I got some I got March 31st, I come back to Seattle for Northwest Pro.
March or May?
For the title. What's up?
May 31st?
Yep, May 31st.
All right, you said March. All right, May 31st. Maybe
my bad. May 31st. So, yeah, a lot going on. I'm very grateful for everything, and I'm ready for it all.
Well, we got 10 seconds here. What's your favorite state to wrestle in?
Wow. Favorite state to wrestle in, I will have to say Oregon.
Really? Oregon?
Yes. Wow. Oregon or Seattle, yes.
I would not have expected that. Nothing against Oregon or anything. It's beautiful. But, man, you got the whole country here. You got lots of sun over there on the East Coast, Florida. So, interesting.
I know. But I do love the crowds in Pacific Northwest. They've been amazing to me for many, many years.
Well, I want to thank you so much for doing the show today. Best of luck with everything. We'll do this again soon. Maybe I'll try and head out May 31st if I can. And all the best. Good luck with everything.
Thank you very much, my friend. Appreciate you.
And, of course, thanks, everybody, for listening. We're out of time, but we'll talk to you on Friday, Wrestling Observer Live.